Thank you very much. Please sit. I'm not entirely certain whose idea this fanfare is, but whoever designed it must clearly have in mind that at conferences such as this, when people have sat for a while, they must stand up and stretch their legs. Let me thank you all very warmly for the time and contributions that you've made this morning. I must say this has been a very practical and very useful session. It's right that government is meant to be a creation for the people. It is a device that is meant to make the lives and livelihoods of people easier. The people donate power, the power of regulation, the power of law and order, the power to render justice. The people donate all of this to governments. In turn, the people expect that when they have donated these powers to a group of individuals such as ourselves, who are described as government, the people expect that we, in turn, public servants, civil servants, or however we're described, are ministers or servants. And it's very interesting because the expression ministers, as many of us know, of course, actually means servant. And it's not coincidence that we're described as civil servants or public servants. So it implies that the systems that we run, all of the systems that we run, are meant to actually facilitate and to make the lives and livelihoods of our people easier. But the evidence over the years is that government and its agencies are seen more as an obstacle, a hindrance rather than a facilitator. And this is across all arms of government: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. We've talked extensively about the executive and about agencies, about the problems that agencies create, or that the problems that people have in interacting with the executive agencies. But so it is with the judiciary as well. And there's an expression that the Honourable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment made, which is the cost of disagreeing, the cost of disagreeing, the cost of going to court, the time that it takes to resolve disputes. While we were serving in Lagos, while I was serving in Lagos as Attorney General, we had to look at the problems associated with delays in court procedures, because as you know, of course, Lagos is practically 60% of commercial enterprise in Nigeria. And so if we could reduce the cost of litigation in Lagos, it meant that we could actually reduce the cost overall and make business a little easier for people. For example, as it turned out, even just building houses, the stock of houses that we had, was actually reducing over time. Why was that happening? Because people were preferring to invest in stocks or shares as opposed to building. Because when you build a house and you want to get rent, you expect to get rent from it. After your tenants have paid 2 years, they stop paying and expect you to go to court. And you're in court for 5-6 years. After a while, in some cases, you either beg them to leave, or you go and put some thing in front of their homes, which might frighten them out. There's so many ways of getting people out of rented accommodation. Or, in some extreme cases, you actually even pay them to go and live elsewhere so that you can take your property back. So by and large, because there is so much time spent just trying to resolve cases, the business environment is so much more difficult. So it's not just an executive thing, It is certainly a systems issue. It cuts across our entire systems, and we must simply do something about it. Obviously, one of the major consequences, an obvious consequence, is that our business environment is one of the most stressful in the world. There's no question at all about that. And this clearly hinders economic growth. If people don't invest, no jobs are created. And wherever our children go to school, however, no matter what we spend on our children's education, if they're not able to find jobs, that really is a problem. It's a bigger problem, of course, it's a much bigger problem for those who have spent practically everything they own educating their children. And they just expect that after we spent so much, invested so much on these young people, they should be able to find decent jobs. But if the business environment does not work, you simply can't create the jobs. And it means that many of our young people will be frustrated. And that's what we're seeing today. There is a great deal of frustration out there because young people they just simply can't find jobs. And the reason why they can't find jobs is because local and international investments are just drying up unless we're able to solve the problem. So every time that a public servant is an obstacle to anyone seeking approvals or licenses, he or she attacks the Nigerian economy and its future. I think it's important for us to bear it in mind that any time a public servant, whether the public servant is in the executive or whether the public servant is in the judiciary or even in the legislature, every time that we create obstacles for doing business, we attack our prosperity as a nation, we also attack the future because the young people simply will not be able to find accommodation to do the sorts of things that they need to do after being educated. Our individual and collective vision, objective as civil and public servants, must be to advance the social and economic prosperity of Nigeria. And that's why this sitting together is so important. And we must do it more regularly. We must sit together regularly to discuss how to make not just doing business, but just living in this country easier. Almost all countries of the world that have made the leap from an inefficient business environment and an efficient living environment have had to sit together in the way that we're sitting together and take some simple, common sense decisions on what to do. It's nothing complicated, there's nothing particularly intellectual about the decisions that people have to make. They are simple, common sense decisions. Why is it that, for example, look at Singapore. Years ago, I remember going to Singapore in 1990, and I walked in with just my passport. I did not have any visas, I did not take any visa there. In any event, they didn't even have embassies in anywhere in West Africa. So we simply went there with just a passport, and we were stamped in, we went into the country, we were welcomed very well, and that was the end of that. Even Kenya, years ago, Kenya and Ghana and all of that, visa on arrival. We're happy to see that today we're doing much the same thing. And that's on account of the very great work that the Ministry of the Interior, the Immigrations and Customs are doing. But these are simple, common sense decisions that we have to make. We just have to decide. We must make life easier for ourselves. We must make it easier for people to invest in our country so that we can create the prosperity that our people need. Most of these measures just mean placing an extra burden on ourselves, on regulators, and the responsible civil servants. We must place the burden on ourselves. It just means doing the unusual, being innovative. But above all, we must be vision-driven. Because there's no other way except if we are ready to take on the responsibility and the sacrifice of doing the things that will make life easier for all of our people. We just have to make that sacrifice. I agree also that a system that rewards performance and punishes malfeasance is key. And I agree with that entirely. We must work out incentive schemes, even as we tighten up sanctions regimes and all that. Incentive schemes always work. Again, I go back to some of the experiences we had in Lagos. When we decided that we wanted to clean up our judiciary, we decided that we must do something about the incentive scheme. We must do something about ensuring that first, people who are judges are treated better than other people because the responsibility they have is much greater than the responsibility that other people have. In any event, when they retire, they're not even allowed to practice their professions anymore. So we laid out an incentive scheme, but at the same time, we also ensured that where people committed acts that were wrong, they faced the law for it. There was consequence, there were sanctions. When we got into Lagos, we did a survey of litigants who go to courts in Lagos State. And we asked the question from the lawyers, not litigants, we asked the question from lawyers, 200 lawyers who go to courts regularly in Lagos State. Now, what was their impression of the judiciary? Whether, and of course the question was, was judiciary corrupt, notoriously corrupt, very corrupt, clean, etc. And 89% said that the judiciary was notoriously corrupt. Notoriously corrupt. 89% of lawyers practicing in the court. So, but up to that time, no judge, no magistrate had ever been suspended or even reprimanded for corruption. Yet everybody believed that the judiciary was corrupt. Everybody, 89% believed the judiciary was corrupt. And it's the sort of thing that we allow in our country. We all agree that something is bad, so thoroughly bad, but we just continue to pretend that it's okay, So we just leave the system, we let the system work the way it continues to work, knowing that we are going nowhere. But we decided in Lagos that we were going to do something about it, and we did. And we ensured not only that we put in place a compensations regime that was copied across the nation, but also that we punished or ensured sanctions for those who broke the law. That's the way that nations all over the world, good, prosperous nations all over the world, are run. They are run by ensuring that those who do well are rewarded and those who do not are punished. And we're able to turn around the judiciary in Lagos with great help, of course, of everyone, including the judiciary themselves and public service. So I think that we can do it here. It's entirely possible for us to do it here. And a lot of it, as I said, must depend on our own willingness as senior public servants, as visionaries for our different agencies and departments, to make a real difference, to ensure that we're not just going to pass through this place. We'll do something that will change wherever it is that we are, and that people will notice that we pass through. It's so important that we don't just decide that, well, let me just pass through this place and one day retire and be called a retired CEO or retired vice president or former, there's so many former something, But there must be something attached to that former. The former something who did something, not just the former, So I think it's crucial that we get the sense that the responsibility that our nations have placed, that have placed on us, is also a huge privilege. It's a huge privilege. How many people of 180 million will ever get to be CEO of MPA or permanent secretary, federal permanent secretary? How many? Very, very, very few indeed. Very, very few. Even if we were to be here for another 50 years, very few people still of a 200 million, 300 million. The president has laid out a cornerstone policy of this administration, and that policy is that we must grow what we eat and we must make what we use. Again, the president enunciated this principle in the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Buy Nigerian, use Nigerian. So we must now insist, that this is the way to go. And we must insist practically in a common sense manner. We must ensure that this is commonsensical in the way that we do things. And there's no reason at all why at state banquets we should not insist that we eat and drink Nigeria. No reason at all. Because anyone, even those who are visiting our country, if we say that this is what we do, nobody's going to complain. If you visit us, we'll give you our nice Nigerian food. We'll make it as nice as possible. If you don't like spicy okra, we'll give you the one that's not spicy. If you don't like spicy whatever, we'll give you, whatever it is that is required. We'll make it nice and continental as well. But I think it's important that we ensure that we start at home. As they say, charity begins at home, and we should start with these banquets and the other events that we hold. So for those who will be having lunch this afternoon, you can be sure that there will be no imported food. I'm not as worried as the head of service is about the cost of Nigerian rice, because just as it's been pointed out by the Permanent Secretary, it's a short-term challenge, very short-term, and we fully expected it, even in agricultural policy, we fully expected that beginning, Nigerian rice will still be more expensive than imported rice. And why is that so? The reason, simple reason, is that the countries that export rice to us subsidize production of rice. Simple. So their rice will hit the Nigerian markets cheaper than our own farmers and millers can currently deliver. Trade all over the world is serious business. It's serious business. All countries of the world understand that trade is what fuels employment at home. They know that trade is what causes their own countries to grow and to make progress. So trade is serious. So they know that, look, Nigerian rice currently is produced at 15,000. We will bring ours in at 10 or 11. And that's simply what's going on. So it's up to us. It's up to us. And you ask the question, why do they subsidize? Simple. To create jobs for their farmers and millers. That's why they subsidize. So if we continue importing, we're simply transferring our farmers and millers' jobs to the countries that export rice or anything else to us. And that's why it's so important for us to understand that we must incentivize our own farmers. And currently we're working with the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank Governor, and several others, working together to put together an incentive regime for our farmers to ensure that our farmers are also able to compete. Whatever it is that other countries are doing to make their products cheaper, we will do the same things, and we will even do better. Let me just say as a roundup that Nigeria has the best educated civil service, certainly in Africa. And I've been around. I said, and I say this, very seriously, because one has been around, and had the privilege of, functioning in a few places, including the United Nations. Everywhere that you see the Nigerian professional, everywhere you see the Nigerian, we're usually even overqualified for what we're doing. Just the other day, I was speaking to the new VC of the Maritime University, a lady who's an engineer. She has 3 PhDs, including 2 from some of the best universities in the world. How many people in the world have 3 PhDs? How many? I mean, it's just unlikely that people would have 3 PhDs. But that's the Nigerian for you. We are better educated, we are better informed. There is nobody here. If you make a presentation anywhere, people will say, this person is from the most developed country in the world, if you make a presentation. Because we also make the best presentations, excellent presentations. The only problem we seem to have is performing, getting the things done. That's the problem we seem to have. Performing, getting stuff done. And that's why I just strongly believe that this particular opportunity that we have, which is to take a look at our rules, especially the rules of doing business, just taking a segment of some of the issues and problems that we have as a nation. This particular one, I think it's an opportunity for us to prove that yes, we're smart people, we know what to do, we know the rules, we know all the issues, but also we can perform. Also, we will perform. And so I'm just looking forward to how this is going to work, because everybody who I've spoken to about this, everybody knows that this must work. And that's why when we started the Ease of Doing Business thing, and we set ourselves a 60-day plan to see how far we could go, We just saw that so many people were working, because so many people were working together, were working with immigration, customs, everyone who was working with us, NAFTA, everybody who was involved in this process. Everybody was keen to show that they could really do this and they could perform. And that's why we're able to hit 70% so quickly. The next 30% is what we're committing to in the next few weeks, going into months. And I'm absolutely certain that this set of incredibly brilliant people who are looking at me now will be able to deliver on exactly that. I'm going to hold myself to it, and I'm going to hold you to it. Thank you very much.